Hi, this is Vignesh, and let me talk about one of my favorite projects which I worked on when I worked as a software engineer for this client called as Windstream Communications. So Windstream Communications is a telecom service provider who's headquartered in the North Carolina region and provides like broadband and simple POTS based services to the customers across that region. So now Windstream as an organization, they have a huge base of customers. They have their own set of people. But the main revenue model for Windstream is that they acquire smaller companies in and around that region. So say for instance, a smaller company is having a customer base of like 3 million people. Windstream acquires that company and adds those 3 million people to their inventory. So they keep on just acquiring new companies and put them onto their inventory, and this is how majorly they work on their revenue. And so this was regarding one of the recent acquisitions of Windstream, wherein Windstream acquired a smaller organization compared to them, and we had to migrate all the information of that smaller organization onto the Windstream's database. So this usually throws in a lot of resistance on the path, as to since that is a smaller organization which they've acquired, they capture limited information from the customer and they store like a limited information onto their database as to what kind of services they provide to the customer, what kind of information they receive and they give to the customer, compared to what Windstream does. Windstream as the organization is much bigger in size. They collect a lot of information, they maintain a lot of records about the customer and the kind of service they give back to the customer. So we have lots of tables, lots of huge database and everything, but then the smaller companies have it much lesser in size and volume. So now the problem comes in various forms, and there were few information which the smaller company was getting from the customer, which Windstream did not. So we did not have the necessary tables and the database fields for us to insert all those information onto this. So we had to figure out a way, if or not to create a new table in the production database, or we can fit in those data onto a different database field on a specific table. So we had to figure all that out, and there were a few information which the smaller company did not collect, and Windstream had tables and fields for them to fill. So if we were to give a null value to those fields, then a lot of constraints happen, and we had to manage all that and migrate all this. And also, like Windstream, as it's a huge organization, we had different kinds of clients. So we had residential clients, enterprise clients, we had business customers, we had high-speed customers, and we had customers who had IPTV services. And like the company which they recently acquired did not even have most of the services which Windstreams provide. So this threw another kind of resistance onto our path as to how do we manage all those kinds of data. And so we didn't have much clarity when we began this work, and also this was not like the usual regular waterfall model which we used to like analyze the whole project and come on to the construction and unit testing phase. And this was done in an agile methodology. And so like every day we had the daily status calls, the scrum meetings, and the status updates and everything. And since we didn't have much clarity in what we were doing, since this was like the project was started on a very short notice, and there were lots of changes and modifications in between, like when we had to finish an entire cycle of the scrum, and the client wanted some different kinds of changes, and we had to redo the entire different kinds of processes. So this threw a lot of resistance on our project front. And so we had to be really careful in getting these data onto the production database, as any small glitch in this migration would jeopardize the provisioning of millions of customers of the recently acquired company. And so we had to implement this entire migration onto a few of the test environments which Windstream had specifically created for this migration. And we had to perform a rigorous testing on this to ensure that there were no fallout of the records. And so the new test environments were created and they were synchronized with the production database, and then the implementation was done on those support instances, and there were new test cases that were created to ensure that every single orders get through the system and come out with a successful provisioning. And so we had to test this on a lot of different fronts. So are the new customers which have been recently migrated from the new company to the Windstream's legacy database, are they getting the products which Windstream offers to their regular customers? Are they able to get provision for such products which Windstream exclusively offers and which these customers were not getting as a part of the previous company? So we had to ensure all these things were set before we were able to migrate the entire system onto the production database. So on the day of the implementation, when we were about to implement this on the production servers of Windstreams, we had to get the firing access from the Windstream's IT team so that we can access the production servers of the Windstream and then incorporate the newly changed logic onto their servers. And so we had to shut down the production servers for a stipulated period of time and create a downtime for the Windstream's business users, and then put in our code logic into this and then restart the servers back to use again. And we had to get this one done with the minimum downtime possible so that we can mitigate the impact that it creates for the business. And also we had to create a rollback script if in case something goes wrong with this implementation and or if something stuff doesn't work. So we had to roll back the entire code back to the original how it was prior to the implementation so that the business keeps rolling as it was, and we can work on the fixes and then we can re-implement it at a later time. And once we implemented the entire logic, post-implementation was again another nightmare for us. So issues from places where we didn't even imagine cropped up, and so we had to analyze the whole code and the business logic, and we have to figure out like what was causing this issue. And that wasn't sufficient, and we had to figure out what was the root cause that was causing this issue, and what are all the tables that it impacts, and what are all the kinds of customers and services does it impact also. And so we had to figure out all these things, and we had to create a few fixes for them and then roll out within the next couple of days after the implementation and get the things right. And so as a fresher, just 1 year into the organization, when I was put into such a challenging project, and I was able to learn a lot about what is the project lifecycle and how things work and what happens in the day of the implementation, how do we access the production servers. And I was having real-time access to the production servers, and I was working with the servers of such a huge organization. That was like a great hands-on experience for me. And so this project created a lot of impact on me. I have worked on several projects for the same client, but this one was very challenging, and the kind of complexity that it entailed, because of that I learned a lot of information and experience with this kind of project. So this is one of the projects which I learned a lot from, and which is one of the most interesting projects ever to date. Thank you.